The Bridal of Pennacook by Greenleaf Whittier. We had been wandering for many days through the rough northern country. We had seen the sunset with its bars of purple cloud, like a new heaven, shine upward from the lake of Winnipesaukee, and had felt the sunrise breezes midst the early leafy isles, which stooped their summer beauty to the lips of the bright waters. We had checked our steeds, silent with wonder, where the mountain wall is plied to heaven, and through the narrow rift of the vast rocks, against whose rugged feet beats the mad torrent with perpetual roar, where noonday is as twilight, and the wind comes burdened with the everlasting moan of forests and of far-off waterfalls. We had looked upward where the summer sky, tasseled with clouds light-woven by the sun, sprung its blue arch above the abutting crags, or roofing the vast portal of the land beyond the wall of mountains. We had passed the high source of the Saco, and bewildered in the dwarf spruce belts of the crystal hills, had heard above us, like a voice in the cloud, the horn of Fabian sounding, and atop of old Agiochuk had seen the mountains piled to the northward, shagged with wood and thick as meadow molehills, the far sea of Casco a white gleam on the horizon of the east. Fair lakes embosomed in the woods and hills, Moosilauke's mountain range and Kearsarge lifting his granite forehead to the sun. And we had rested underneath the oaks, shadowing the bank whose grassy spires are shaken by perpetual beating of the falls of the wild Ammonoosuc. We had tracked the winding Pemigewasset, overhung by beechen shadows, whitening down its rocks or lazily gliding through its intervals, from waving rye fields sending up the gleam of sunlit waters. We had seen the moon rising behind Umbagog's eastern pines, like a great Indian campfire, and its beams at midnight spanning with a bridge of silver the Merrimack by Uncanunoc's falls. There were 5 souls of us, whom travel's chance had thrown together in these wild north hills. A city lawyer, for a month escaping from his dull office, where the weary eye saw only hot brick walls and close thronged streets, briefless as yet, but with an eye to see life's sunniest side, and with a heart to take its chances at all godsends. And his brother, pale from long pulpit studies, yet retaining the warmth and freshness of a genial heart, whose mirror of the beautiful and true in man and nature was as yet undimmed by dust of theologic strife or breath of sect or cobwebs of scholastic yore, like a clear crystal calm of water, taking the hue and image of o'erleaning flowers, sweet human faces, white clouds of the noon, slant starlight glimpses through dewy leaves, and tenderest moonrise. 'Twas in truth a study to mark his spirit, alternating between a decent and professional gravity and an irreverent mirthfulness which often laughed in the face of divinity, plucked off the sacred ephod, quite unshrined the oracle, and for the pattern priest left us the man. A shrewd, sagacious merchant, to whom the soiled sheet found in Crawford's Inn, giving the latest news of city stocks and sales of cotton, had deeper meaning than the great presence of the awful mountains glorified by the sunset. And his daughter, a delicate flower, on whom had blown too long the evil winds, which, sweeping from the ice and winnowing fogs of Labrador, shed their cold blight round Massachusetts Bay, with the same breath which stirs spring's opening leaves, and lifts her half-formed flower bell on its stem, poisoning our seaside atmosphere. It chanced that, as we turned upon our homeward way, a drear northeastern storm came howling up the valley of the Saco, and that girl who had stood with us upon Mount Washington, her brown locks ruffled by the wind which whirled in gusts around its sharp, cold pinnacle, who had joined our gay trout fishing in the streams, which lave that giant's feet, whose laugh was heard like a bird's carol on the sunrise breeze, which swelled our sail amidst the green lake islands, shrank from its harsh, chill breath, and visibly drooped like a flower in the frost. So, in that quiet inn, which looks from Conway on the mountains piled heavily against the horizon of the north, like summer thunderclouds, we made our home, and while the mist hung over dripping hills, and the cold wind-driven raindrops all day long beat their sad music upon roof and pane, we strove to cheer our gentle invalid. The lawyer, in the pauses of the storm, went angling down the Saco, and, returning, recounted his adventures and mishaps, gave us the history of his scaly clients, mingling and ludicrous yet apt citations of barbarous law Latin, passages from Isaac Walton's Angler, sweet and fresh as the flower-skirted streams of Staffordshire, where, under aged trees, the southwest wind of soft June mornings fanned the thin white hair of the sage fisher. And, if truth be told, our youthful candidate forsook his sermons, his commentaries, articles, and creeds, for the fair page of human loveliness, the missal of young hearts, whose sacred text is music, its illumining sweet smiles. He sang the song she loved, and in his low, deep, earnest voice recited many a page of poetry, the holiest, tenderest lines of the sad bard of Olney, the sweet song, simple and beautiful as truth and nature, of him whose whitened locks on Bridal Mount are lifted yet by morning breezes blowing from the green hills, immortal in his lays. As for myself, obedient to her wish, I searched our landlord's proffered library. A well-thumbed Bunyan with its nice wood pictures of scaly fiends and angels not unlike them, Watt's unmelodious psalms, astrology's last home, a musty pile of almanacs, and an old chronicle of border wars and Indian history. And as I read a story of the marriage of the chief of Saugus to the dusky Weetamoo, daughter of Passaconaway, who dwelt in the old time upon the Merrimack, our fair one, in playful exercise of her prerogative, the right divine of youth and beauty, bade us versify the legend, and with pencil ready sketched its plan and outlines, laughingly assigning to each his part, and barring our excuses with absolute will. So, like the cavaliers, whose voices are still heard in the romance of silver-tongued Boccaccio, on the banks of Arno, with soft tales of love beguiling the ear of languid beauty, plague exiled from the stately Florence, we rehearsed our rhymes to their fair auditor, and shared by turns her kind approval and playful censure. It may be that these fragments owe alone to the fair setting of their circumstances, the associations of time, scene, and audience, their place amid the pictures which fill up the chambers of my memory. Yet I trust that some, who sigh while wandering in thought, pilgrims of romance o'er the olden world, that our broad land, our sea-like lakes and mountains piled to the clouds, our rivers overhung by forests which have known no other change for ages than the budding and the fall of leaves, our valleys lovelier than those which the old poets sang of, should but figure of the apocryphal chart of speculation, as pastures, woodlots, mill sites, with the privileges, rights, and appurtenances which make up a Yankee paradise. Unsung, unknown to beautiful tradition, even their names, whose melody yet lingers like the last vibration of the red man's requiem, exchanged for syllables significant of cotton mill and rail car, will look kindly upon this effort to call up the ghost of our dim past, and listen with pleased ear to the responses of the questioned shade.